what is learning and its different phases. So, learning is the process of changing, is the process of we have knowledge in our mind. Knowledge is what we have of the perception of the reality, and knowledge are representation of the reality. So learning is the idea of acquiring the information that is in the reality. It comes to our mind, and when you learn something new, it changes, and that's what learning means. So the learning have 6 phases. What we call by learning is a set of different processes in which we process the information. So our mind have 2 main functions. One is getting the information and process the information, and the second is creating actions, making orders, do this, do that, act in this way, behave in that way, and all with the purpose of achieving things that we need to survive and things we need for our happiness and our purposes. So it's really curious because we say learning, but in fact learning is at least 2 very different things, and these processes are quite different. One thing is the process of forming the knowledge formation process, and another thing is the process of storing the information, what we call memory. And when we say learning, we mean both. So sometimes we say, how do we learn? And we are meaning, how can I make the information stick to our mind better? And other times we say, how can I learn this? And you mean, how can I understand it? How can I break down this concept? How can I see it? So we use the word learning in both meanings. And this is just like if you call apples and banana fruit, and you say, hey, bring me 2 fruits and bring me 3 fruits, and you mean bring me 2 apples and 3 bananas, but you say fruit and fruit. So it wouldn't make sense, right? So when we speak, we should specify what we really mean. And by learning what is learning and learning what are the phases in learning, you will find this true. So what are the 6 phases in the learning? So we have the receiving information, the seeing of the information. I will explain now what does that mean. We have validating the information. It means distinguishing of what is true and what is not true, because sometimes we perceive something that is not true. By validating, we will accept it or reject it. This could be considered part of validation. And then is storing the information, is what we call memory. And between the process of storing it will be the 6th. No, and sorry, and it was the 5th, and the 6th one is motivation, which is not in the process itself of acquiring information and processing information, but is actually outside. Motivation is about why you learn, what drives you to learn. And this is so important because if you have a good reason to learn, if you have a good motivation, you're going to push really hard on your learning. And those children and those people who they are not motivated, they haven't got a real reason to learn, it doesn't suit their identity or their values, then that people, they're going to struggle a lot to learn. So that's why motivation is part of the learning process, even if it's not in the process of learning by the definition of processing information. So the first thing, receiving the information. Well, this basically means we have eyes, we have ears, and what we get from the outside, from the reality, is a stimulus. So what is a stimulus? So this is a stimulus, you hear this noise, and one of the main ways we get knowledge is by words. I'm giving you knowledge through words, And this means you need to have a crypto code. So this is the English language code. If you understand English, you will be able to uncode what I'm speaking, and you will be, in your mind will be arising all of these meanings. The another way we acquire a lot of information is through our eyes. So our eyes is the main source of knowledge. Probably I will say 60 or 70% of all information come from eyes, at least direct experience. When we walk on the street, when we are driving a car, riding a bike, when we walk in our house, when we open the fridge, whatever we do, our eyes are the main source of knowledge to whatever action. If you want to spot on what is going on in something, you turn around to look at it. You don't try to just guess it by your ears. So these are the two main sources to receive information. The second thing is forming the knowledge and what I see, seeing the information. So just because, imagínate que ahora te hablo en español y te explico algo del aprendizaje. If I speak in Spanish and you don't understand Spanish, then your mind wouldn't be able to make arise any knowledge, right? Because you need to have the meaning of those words in your mind and the grammar rules about how to combine those words. So this is part of the process of forming the knowledge. Another very important thing in the knowledge formation is previous knowledge, and this is I will say the most important thing. You need previous knowledge to understand something. So imagine that I say a tree started to fly. You will say, what? A tree started to fly? You will say, that's not true, because you have previous knowledge that trees doesn't fly. Therefore, that doesn't make sense. So when we learn in the university, everywhere, our mind is always looking for making sense. Is looking for that things are coherent to our previous knowledge, because our mind always builds knowledge based on a consistency of knowledge, of no contradiction. So for example, what is no contradiction? Contradiction means that the most important principle of the universe is the principle of identity, and the derivation of this rule is no contradiction. What does this mean? It's very simple. It just basically means if you have an apple and you eat it, you don't have it. You cannot have your apple and at the same time eat it. Either one or two. You want to eat it, don't have it. You want to keep it, cannot eat it. So our mind is always looking for making sense of the thing, and it's always looking for contradictions, things that doesn't make sense. And as you know that trees never fly, unless you would be a children and you don't know many things about the world, then you may think, wow, maybe in the world where this man lives, maybe there is trees that fly. But no, most of the people is not that naive, and they know that trees, they stick to the floor and they are outside the houses and they don't fly. So you have to have always the previous knowledge to understand the things. And the thing is that a tree flying makes sense in the story, but you have to have the previous knowledge. What is the previous knowledge? Then if you ask the person who you hear that, or the book you read that, you ask the author, what do you mean by a tree flying? And probably he will say, well, I mean that a hurricane took the tree. So the hurricane and the storm made the tree start to fly. So it's not that a tree started to fly like a bird. It was that the tree was take off from the land because the strength of the hurricane and the tree started to fly, right? So now makes sense. So we have to have always previous knowledge. Previous knowledge is the most important thing to make sense of the information and being able to see the real meaning. Your mind is always looking for meaning. It's always looking for no contradictions against your previous knowledge that you have on the reality. When your mind sees a contradiction, it rejects that knowledge. So in the beginning, when we start to learn, when we are children, we need to have solid foundations, solid references, things that are true and they are really, really strong. So we have those big pillars to validate against those anything new information we learn. And when something doesn't make sense, we will say, this doesn't make sense because I know that this is it's not possible. Either one or two principle of identity. The process of validation is totally related with what I just explained because it's the idea of looking for no contradictions. So the no contradiction principle is the main criterion to validate information. So when something is contradictory, then either one is true and the other is false, or the opposite, the other is true and the other is false. And validation means using different rules to validate what the information is true. You hear that I just yesterday read a news saying that in a Japanese restaurant they are selling human meat. That's quite weird. So some people, they believe that because they want to believe in weird things and things that are like that. But just because someone says something, that doesn't mean it's true. So we have different rules to validate information. And whenever your mind thinks something is not true, your mind won't accept it, will reject it. And it means that you are not putting the knowledge into your mind. You will say, well, I hear that a Japanese restaurant is giving human meat, but I don't believe it's true. You could say it, you can store it in your mind, but not pass it to the part of your mind where you store what you believe is true knowledge, right? And this is an important distinction, because what the knowledge goes to the part where you believe is true knowledge, this knowledge will have the power to drive your behavior. So imagine that you are in your home studying. Imagine you live in a college, and one of your friends come to you and he say, come on, we have to go because there is fire in the other part of the building, come on. If you believe him, you will run really fast out of the building. But if you don't believe him, you see everything quiet, there is no one running, no alarms ring, you don't smell anything, you don't see any kind of smoke, nothing. So you don't believe it, therefore, then you stay, you keep studying, or you keep doing whatever you do. So the next thing is storing information, what we call memory. And for memory, we have two main sources of making a concept to stick to the mind. One is emotion, and another is repetition. Repetition basically means you keep repeating reading a book or reading a text, or keep listening to an information, keep writing in a paper, keep reviewing in your mind. So that process of repetition make concepts to stick to the mind, to get the memory of it. The other thing, emotion, is the idea connected with motivation. When a concept is important to you, when you care about, when you like it, when it's something of a topic that you are interested, that's easy for you to remember those concepts. So everyone have passions and things they like. And what happens when you like something? You learn it easily, you get it really easily, because is something that suits to you, suits your values. As well, this is related with what I just explained about knowledge formation, about seeing the information and previous knowledge. And this means that as not everyone have the same previous knowledge, not everyone will be able to understand the same things. And your previous knowledge, the knowledge that is already in your mind, will have the quality to determine what knowledge you are capable of learning next. And this combined with your values on the motivation, the things you like and the things you care about, the things you need, this is going to set the things next that is going to be the most productive learning for you, because it's the thing that you more easily you are going to learn. So storing information, when you like it, you will easily remember it. And in storing information, there is this fifth process, which is making order in information. And it's been found that making order in information is super important to recall it easily. So when we use the knowledge and we bring it from the memory, this is a function we call recall. So it's kind of like our mind is just like, if you have some books here, this is your where you store knowledge, and you have a room where knowledge is processed, information is processed, where entities are contrasted with one to each other. So this is what is called working memory. This will be the long-term memory, and next to the working memory, this is the short-term memory. And the idea is that when you bring information from the long-term memory, this function of bringing here information, this is recall. And just think on idea like, if I ask you, what did you eat yesterday for lunch? So you are now trying to remember, what did you eat yesterday? So this is playing the function of recall, bringing information from your long-term memory. And the more tidy and orderly the information is in your mind, the clearer the information in your mind, the easily for you to bring it to your consciousness, to your working memory. It will be more easily. So this is what has been found. You need to make tidy the concepts. You need to clearly define what is what and what is the order in a series of concepts. Like, for example, on what are the different phases of learning. By making tidy all the information, you will have easily to remember. So super important. When you learn, make tidy the information. Make the concepts. What is the logic on this? What is the order? What goes behind what? What is the hierarchy on these concepts? What is more important? What is less? What is the relation between this and this? Find those knowledge, those relations, those hierarchies. What is first? What is below? Apple and bananas are part of fruit. Fruit and vegetables are part of organic material. So doing this, very important for you later to when you explain things, when you use your thinking, when you learn. So this is a function of storing information. I established it as a fifth process in the phases of learning because it's very important. And the last process is very important, is motivation. Motivation will drive you to learn faster, to learn in a much stronger way, to get the concepts more easily. Because if you like something, if you like a topic, you will get it a lot. Even when you have difficulty to understand it, if you like it, you will put your attention really strong to the topic and listen carefully all the details because it's something you like. So we have 4 emotions and another 2 conditions for motivation. So the 4 emotions in motivation are curiosity and having doubts, learning something by necessity, because you need it, and I will give you now an example, and learning something because you like it. Learning something by necessity, it basically means, imagine you have to paint the walls on your house, and you look for a YouTube video about how to paint the walls. So you learn because you have a purpose to achieve, not because you just want to learn, like we learn in a school, or because you are forced to learn, but because you want to achieve something. If you are successful in learning, you will be successful on achieving what you want to achieve. And this is a really powerful learning because it's driven directly by the reason of achieving something that is you, is something you want. So this is the essence of life. The essence of life is everyone has an identity, everyone has values, things they want, and we always pursue to achieve those. And learning is always a function of achieving those purposes. This is, for me, is one of the most powerful learning motivation methods. All education system should be based on this. So in education, the methodological call it project-based learning, learning based on doing projects and doing things. Overall, when those projects are freely chosen by children based on their values, based on things that they care about, they like, things that are important for them, then their learning will be highly and powerful. The second thing, when you like something, so we have to see when you like a topic. When a children like football, he get the name of its football players, and he gets all the information very very easily. Why? Because it's something he likes. He pay attention by natural. So quite straightforward. When you like something, you are much powerful learning than when you don't like it. It's that simple. This is another of the second very powerful starting motivation learning point. The other two, curiosity and having doubts, they are, I would say, they are part of the same thing, having a kind of mystery for you. Because what is curiosity? There is a difference between two, curiosity and doubt. But curiosity is just when you want to know more about a topic, when you are interested on finding what's going on there. Curiosity sparks when you get a hint of something and you want more about, so then you go more for it because you are interested, and having doubts about something is that you establish in your mind questions about something. So you see apples fall from the tree, and then you make a question: why they fall? What's the reason why they fall? What pushed them to fall? Is there an invisible hand that makes the apple to fall? No. So what kind of force made them to fall? When you start to put in contrast the entities that you perceive in the reality and wonder about the cause that produce this effect, then you are making questions, you are having doubts. And when that suits your natural values, your natural things, those doubts come out of you naturally, then that learning is much powerful than learning obligated, something you don't like, something that you haven't made a question. Always in learning, we have to make that children and people naturally come out with the questions, because this is what really sparks for them the learning. If you put just knowledge inside the mind of a children, he don't really learn. He need to make the question, he need to ask, okay, here comes the effect, but what is the cause? There is a relation between this and this. What produced this effect? What this is produced of? So there is something here that I don't know, and I have to find the truth. So this is what to learn, right? So that's another powerful method. And another two ways in the motivation for learning is learning just by himself, by being in front of a situation. Imagine you are waiting for catching the bus, and then you see a situation, and then you are learning just because you are in front. You don't learn just because you want to learn, but just because you are there in that situation. We learn just by watching, by being in front of others, by the behavior of others we are influenced. We learn the way others speak, the ways others behave. So our mind grabs all of that. And the sixth one in the motivation process is enforced learning, and is what is in the school. What we have in the school is the worst of all motivation methods. Is the motivation of you learn because I force you to learn. Actually, learning never works by that. It's against the reality. So the reality is that just because you tell me to learn, that doesn't mean I will learn. Because my mind needs to be open, needs to get attention to the topic. So in the school, all is directed, the learning is regulated, restricted, is enforced to do that. It's just if I tell you, you have to learn economics, you have to learn about biology, about chemistry, then you are forced to learn that. So these are all the phases on the learning process. Receiving the information, seeing the information, validating the information, storing the information, ordering the information, and the motivation about why you learn.